What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome back to the Sooner Surge. Happy Monday to you guys out there. Hope you're having a great day. Don't forget to click subscribe, enable those notifications, like and comment, give us feedback, tell us how we're doing. We love the feedback in the comments, especially all things Sooners. And we're here today to talk about really a three-game comparison between last year, Team 128, and Team 129 this season, in a comparison of the two, because last year at this time, guys, Sooner fans were on a high after the Nebraska win 3 games in. And this year, let's do a little comparison game of where this team stands up and measures up to that team, guys.
Well, to me, I felt I'll be the first one to admit that last year after the Nebraska game, I was feeling like they may make a run to the playoffs. I mean, I was hook, line, and sinker bought on Brent Venables as far as last year being his first year and all the things that happened with Lincoln Riley. And I think I even predicted on our podcast OU versus USC in the playoff. That's what I was wanting. But you know what? There are some telling differences this year. I know there's a lot of similarities if you look at some metrics, but there's also some glaring differences in these two teams. To me, the most, and I could do stats all day long for you, but I'm not doing that. I'm not much of a stats guy. I'm going off my eye test, okay? Yeah. I was at the game Saturday in person, and guys, the physicality and the tackling, period, is to me is the biggest difference between this team and last year's team. And I will say this, and I will use a word that Brent Venables used in his post-game press conference, and a word that otherwise known in the Switzer era as swagger. Brent Venables used the term edge. This team has an edge about it. That to me is also known as swagger. And this team has a little bit different edge than last year's team, in my opinion, from watching the games.
Right, and this is a team that is both top 10 in scoring offense and defense.
Top 5.
They're top 5 in both.
Top 5.
Well, that's just incredible compared to the start last year. And Jeremy, you said that we were off a high last year, right? They upset. No, they didn't upset, but they beat Nebraska handily in Lincoln. OU fans thought that Brent Venables had the defense back. It was going to be – everything was going to be fixed overnight, but it wasn't. And I agree, just from the pure eye test, this defense looks so much more fast, so much more physical. The talent level is on such a higher level. It's pretty obvious. The depth is there, and offensively, there's more depth. And I think there's more talent on offense as well, because you talk about at running back, they're like 4 deep. I would say at wide receiver, they can play 6 or 7 guys consistently. At tight end, they have Stogner and Blake Smith. The offensive line, we've already seen 7 or 8 guys play. So they've done a lot there. And I just think that the biggest difference overall between this year's team and last year's team, I would say, is how they play on the defensive line. That's going to be my biggest takeaway, is the defensive line is a defensive line that is no longer a weakness of OU's defense, but could be considered the strength.
Especially in the run game. The run game defense, they held TU last game to 1.6 yards a carry. They had 15 tackles for losses, guys. The run game, especially up the middle, has been bar none better than last year. And, I mean, the one thing that I think is not that we don't know about yet and how good it is you can say DG has been better. He has been 100%. But, and I put a but there and a big but, because we have to see him go against a really good team, in my opinion, to see if he's better than last year. And that's just honest, me talking, because he can do it against these teams. Go look at his career, guys. He's done it against these teams. But let's see if he can do it on the road this week at Cincinnati, and then let's see against Texas. That will be, to me, if he has a great game against Texas, then I think this team is, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, looking back on it now, it really does hurt that Dylan Gabriel was not able to play in OU Texas last year.
Yeah.
To where, I mean, it was a blowout. We had no chance in that game entering it. They already had 2 losses going into that game. If he would have been able to get that Cotton Bowl experience, it's the best rivalry in college football. It's a 1-of-1 type game. Dylan Gabriel's played a lot of college football. He's going to probably break passing records that many thought that were unbreakable this year because of how much college football he's played. In that, he has not played in that OU Texas environment. It's a different breed. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles it. But if he handles it as he is handling every game week to week, then we're in a great position. Dylan Gabriel just set a school record for completion percentage against Tulsa, throwing for 420 yards and what was it? 5 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. So it's definitely interesting to see kind of the differences in this team. The biggest thing, really, Danny Stutzman. He was the best player on the defense last year, arguably. This year, he looks like he's an All-American. He looks like he's going to be winning the award. I don't know if it's a big deal or not, but the Butkus Award, what they give the top linebackers in the country, is going to be the first in a long time to do that for OU, possibly with Danny Stutzman. He had a pick 6 this week. Week before, 17.5 tackles, 2 more tackles for loss this week, 9 total tackles, leading the team in tackles again against Tulsa. It's just he's in the right place always.
Well,
in pass coverage and rushing the passer and whatever it is, run game. Danny Stutzman's there.
Yeah, and also BV kind of talked about this in the presser, is that the interceptions, they had 5, okay? Last year, they had plenty of times to make plays, and they just didn't make them, even
7.
easy plays.
I think the exact number was 7 interceptions they dropped last year.
Yeah, I mean, so they are making the plays this year, even if they are easier plays. Like, they still make them, okay? They've made catches. The receiver group has made plays time and time again. They've caught just about everything. So
Yeah,
there are some differences than last year, but still to me, it's not – I don't think we can really judge a whole lot until they play a bigger opponent.
I would agree with that. And I know you said earlier, Jay, you're not a metrics guy. I am a little bit of a metrics geek. And if you look at the numbers compared to last year, some things are noticeable. Dylan Gabriel's yards are way up. Even in the blowout wins last year, OU wasn't hanging 60 and 70 on teams. Kent State, I think, was 33-3, 49-14 on the Nebraska win. But he threw between 230 and 250 yards in most of those games. He was not getting in the 400s. Yards
he
are
never
up.
threw over 300 yards.
But they had Eric Gray rushing the ball a lot too.
Well, I understand. What I'm saying is yards were up. Yards are up in the throwing game. The other thing that's up is while they did spread the ball around a little in the Nebraska game, there are guys that had 2 and 3 catches. The amount of guys that are getting yards after the catch this year are way up. And another thing that is up, and I'm glad it's up, is this point last year, Dylan Gabriel didn't have an interception. Well, he has one this year, and it was he took a deep shot. And last year, you weren't really seeing a lot of that early in the year. He was being very efficient, and now he's being efficient with yards. And I think that's a big deal. What also I want to say what you brought up with Stutzman, Hunter. I think Stutzman and Kanak is probably, viewers, you drop what you think, probably the best duo since Calmus and Teddy. And I guess you could say Calmus and Marshall, or
you
Lehman
got
and
Lofton and Alexander were really good. I'm trying to remember who.
Stutzman's unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree, but Kenneth Murray was really good too. He just didn't have a guy.
It was Kenneth Murray and Brian Asamoah. They were pretty good together.
Yeah. Hey, one thing that we haven't mentioned this stat, and I think I saw it somewhere today, which is if you look at OU's offense this year, this is the number one reason they're playing so much better. Third down efficiency, they're number 1 in the country. Yeah. Number 1 in the country on third down efficiency. Last year, they struggled. And defense third down getting off the field is a lot better too.
Yeah, last year you saw a lot of third downs, it was third and longs, and then kind of having to figure out how to convert it. This year, even though third and longs have come up at times, you're noticing they're throwing it to the down marker. Like Andrew Anthony, especially, he's got it a lot, just a yard past the down marker where he's making that catch just to pick up the first down and keep drives alive. That's one thing that did not happen last year. Last year it was kind of a deeper shot that was an incomplete or a sack or whatever it may be last year. It wasn't kind of finding those open holes, just getting what you need. It was kind of third and long, let's try to make a touchdown happen. And that's why they were very bad at converting last year.
Another reason the receivers' numbers may be up, guys, is last year they had Braden Willis. They don't have that this year. More of a safety valve. I think their safety valve this year, honestly, is a guy like Drake Stoops, who they can just really pop it out to very quickly, and he get some yards. But you're right. Until a test is had by this team, but if you heard Venables talk about, someone asked him the same thing about a comparison between the two, and he did use the word edge, and he said all teams are different, and this team does seem to have kind of that difference, and he's loving. One thing I thought that he said was very, very noticeable to me, guys. He said, last year we had good leaders, didn't have enough of them. This year we have the numbers. We have a lot of good leaders. And you can go back to last year. You know who he's talking about, who those few leaders were, but they were very few. This year seems to be light years ahead in the leadership category and the competitive depth issue.
Yeah, this year there's a leader, at least one in every single position group. That hasn't happened in a long time. Like at the bare minimum, one per position group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Jackson.
We'll just
Well, go ahead, then I'm going to ask you a question.
just go ahead and ask me a question.
Okay, I said earlier about this team hasn't until they face a test, and I'm going to preface that and also say that to me, if they go on the road this week and beat Cincinnati handily, I think that's a big time step for this team in the right direction. I don't think you have to go just to Texas to say that's the next big step, because I do think this is a road game. I know they just lost to Miami of Ohio, but last year's team going on the road this week, I don't think would perform well. We'll see how this year's team. What's it going to take for you, Jackson, to really think, okay, this year's team's a totally different team than last year? Would a win Saturday do that, or do you have to wait to Texas to see it?
No, I think if they win handily on Saturday, and if the offense led by Dylan Gabriel has a great showing, and if the defense keeps up the consistency, I look at this Oklahoma team as a team that I could see in the playoff by the end of the year. But as you said, last year's team, they would go into a road environment like this and they would not play good, right? The defense would play bad. The offense, they would go on long stalls. They would not be able to put together good drives. Things would just really fall apart for them. But I think even Brent Venables said, yes, this year's team has played different so far. It feels different so far, but but the same outcome could still happen if they don't go out and perform and do the things they're supposed to do. So this is a team that's going to have to go onto the road and perform well. And if they play a dominant game against Cincinnati, I'm very confident in this team going on for the rest of the year.
Well, there's
1-0 on the week. That's been the thing that's said pretty much all year now is got to win the week. One thing that I find interesting on the road games is like Cincinnati. Yes, it's the first road game. Tulsa, I won't count that. That was a home game. Like we were there. Yeah. It was 80% OU in that crowd. I mean, the H.A. Chapman was rocking when the defense wanted it to be rocking. So last year, the road games that they had TCU. I think that's a tougher road environment than Cincinnati.
Yeah.
West Virginia in the rain. West Virginia is just West Virginia. And then you add in all the weather. And then Texas Tech at night last year. Those were 3 losses on the road. I do think Cincinnati's a lot different. I mean, Emory Jones is our starting quarterback. You don't know what you're going to get from him. Some weeks he's great. Other weeks it's like, how is this guy starting? I mean, last week was kind of that as they lost to Miami, Ohio. So it could be a game they're looking ahead for OU, but I really like this just mentality of 1-0 on the week. I think everyone's saying that. They're all preaching kind of the same thing, and that is telling that like they're all on board on this one thing, like to not look ahead, not worrying about Texas 3 weeks in advance. They got Cincinnati this week, and that's all that matters until Sunday.
Yeah. And before we get off here, guys, I'm going to ask you a question here in a second for each one. I want our viewers to also share that here in a second. But two things that also stand out to me that is way different than last year. There's way less punts this year than there were through 3 games. Turk had 12 through 3 games. I know we had 5 against SMU, but the other 2 games combined may have been 1 each. So we're looking at like 7. So you cut the punts down in half. I think that's impressive, especially considering SMU's probably a tougher opponent than anyone they faced in the first 3 games last year. And then another thing that they have this year that they didn't have last year is a guy in Jackson Arnold, where I think it is way freeing for Dylan Gabriel and an entire staff to know that this is who we have ready to come in if something were to happen. Because I think that was a shock, guys, for OU. When Dylan Gabriel went down, there are a lot of people banking on Gabriel last year as, putting Heisman-like numbers. And when he got hurt and there was no one there to kind of come in, that was a big deal. So a lot of differences in that aspect. Well, so before we get off here, we want the viewers to also drop their word or their phrase. What is the one word you would use to describe the difference between this year's team and last year's team, or a phrase?
I'll start. My word is confidence, and because that's why they're playing faster. That's why they're playing the way they are with an edge. They're confident in the system.
I think for me, a phrase, we've heard it a lot used at Oklahoma, but it's championship culture. I think this team, they have that DNA, that culture instilled in them from Brent Venables in the second year, that whenever they talk, they don't talk about the playoff. They talk about getting to the Big 12 championship first, because they know they can't get to the playoff and the national championship without getting to the Big 12 championship first. So this is a team that has their eyes set on some special things this year.
Hunter?
I'll go. I guess it's 2 words. Super Bowl. That was 1 word. The 1-0 on the week. That was another thing. Every week's the Super Bowl. This is their Super Bowl. This week is Cincinnati. The next week it'll be Iowa State at home, and then a bye week, and then Texas. So just the week-by-week approach. I think that's what you need in this college football season, 12-game season. There's games that are going to be circled on your calendar, but they don't matter until you get to that point. So,
and I'm going to say a phrase here: youngish, oldish. The combination, guys, that they have of older guys. Look at the portal that they brought in with Trace Fords, Rondell Bothroyds. We go on and on. Combine that with some of these young guys that are just now into the team, freshmen, younger guys, sophomores. You got McCullough, who was in the portal, but he's a young guy. I think the combination of the youngish and the oldish is a big deal, and it's really stepped up in the leadership. So, yeah, we want the viewers to also comment. What one word or phrase would you use to describe the difference in Team 128 and Team 129 in Norman, Oklahoma? We're excited about this week. Got a lot of things coming your way, Sooner fans. Make sure you're a part of what's going on at the Sooner Surge. We will drop that content on the daily, each day. Till next time, boys. Boomer.
Boomer.